It was supposed to be a normal Thursday. Nothing special, just another afternoon helping my dad scan a few documents like I'd done countless times before. But life has a cruel sense of humor, because that was the day I accidentally stumbled upon a folder labeled Last Will and Testament. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it, thinking maybe I'd find the typical legal jargon and formalities. What I found instead knocked the wind out of me. Everything, the house, the savings, the assets, was left to my brother Tyler. Not 50-50, not even a shared mention, just him. The only sentence about me was a hollow line. We love both of our sons equally. I stared at those words like they were a punch to the face. For years, I had sacrificed time, energy, and thousands of dollars to help my parents. When bills were due, I paid. When the roof leaked, I fixed it. When my dad's truck broke down, I took care of the repairs. All while Tyler, jobless at 31, coasted through life. He racked up credit card debt, finding himself in Europe. They paid it off. He crashed his car. They bought him a BMW. Meanwhile, my first car was a 15-year-old Honda I paid for working weekends. But I never complained. I didn't help them expecting a reward. I did it out of love and responsibility, until I realized that love was never mutual. They praised my stability while using it as an excuse to ignore me. I was the financial safety net, the reliable one, the invisible one. That day, something broke in me. I didn't rage, I didn't yell. I went home and started canceling everything. The mortgage I covered, the utilities I paid, the credit card I co-signed. I was done being the silent provider. 2 weeks later, the first text came. "Hey bud, the property taxes are due." No apology, no acknowledgement of the betrayal. Just the same old expectation that I'd open my wallet and bail them out again. But not this time. I wasn't part of their future. I wasn't in their will. So I decided I wouldn't be in their present either. 2 weeks after I canceled the mortgage and utilities, the silence was broken. My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Please don't be like this. We need to talk." For a moment, I considered replying. But what was there to say? They made their decision when they wrote me out of their will. Now, they had to live with it. Then came the message from Tyler. "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like always." I laughed. A short, bitter sound in my now quiet apartment. Not a big deal? Really? Giving away everything to my brother behind my back wasn't a big deal. I fired back. "You mean the inheritance? Why don't you use it?" His reply was instant. "You know I don't have that kind of cash right now." Of course not. Because that would require actual responsibility. The next few days were a storm of calls and texts, not just from Mom and Tyler, but even from my aunt, whom they'd clearly recruited into their guilt campaign. I blocked them all, but I wasn't done. I didn't just want distance, I wanted them to feel what it was like to be used and discarded. So I got creative. I'd been managing their homeowner's insurance for years. Since I was still on the policy, I quietly downgraded it to the bare minimum. 2 weeks later, a pipe burst in their bathroom. Thousands in repair costs. My phone lit up with panicked messages from Dad. I sipped my coffee and ignored them. Next came the car. I had co-signed on Tyler's car loan when his credit was trashed. I refinanced it in his name alone, at triple the interest rate. Suddenly, Mr. Freeload had real car payments he couldn't afford. His Instagram stories went from selfies in front of luxury bars to vague posts about hard times. I didn't feel proud, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction. Then came the final blow, the HOA. They'd never read the fine print in their own neighborhood bylaws. I had, so I anonymously reported every violation: overgrown lawn, chipping paint, outdated fencing. Within a month, they were hit with over $5,000 in fines. And I slept like a baby. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. I was the one letting them fall. 3 months after I cut them off, they finally showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning. I just poured my second cup of coffee when I saw them through the peephole. Mom, Dad, and Tyler, standing there like a scene from a guilt trip intervention. Mom's mascara was smudged. Dad's jaw was tight. Tyler looked annoyed, like I had inconvenienced him. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. "Ryan, please," Mom started, her voice cracking. "We need your help." I didn't flinch. "No," I said flatly. She gasped. "You're really going to let us lose everything over this?" I smirked. "You mean the everything you left to Tyler?" "Yeah, I figured he's got it covered." Tyler scoffed. "Dude, don't be a jerk. You always helped before. What's different now?" I tilted my head. "Because before, I thought I was part of this family. Turns out I was just your piggy bank. And now, I'm closed for business." The silence that followed was thick with tension. Dad's voice came next, low and stern. "We raised you. We fed you. We gave you everything." I laughed, sharp and joyless. "Oh, you mean the bare minimum that every parent is legally required to do? Yeah, thanks for the basic human survival." And with that, I slammed the door in their faces. Their muffled voices continued outside, pleading, accusing, bargaining, but I didn't open it again. I poured myself a whiskey, 2 fingers neat, and sat on the couch. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty, not one bit. They had spent years draining me emotionally and financially, all while treating Tyler like the second coming of royalty. And now that I'd stepped away, they were finally getting a taste of what it meant to be left out. I wasn't being cruel, I was being clear. You don't get to write someone out of your life on paper and still expect them to play savior when things fall apart. It's funny how quickly "we're proud of you" turns into "how much can you spare this month?" when you stop enabling people. That day was a turning point, not because they showed up, but because I didn't give in. And for once, I didn't feel like the bad guy. I felt free. Freedom is a strange thing. At first, it tasted like silence. Sweet, undisturbed silence in my apartment. No late-night calls about emergencies. No text chains begging for help paying off bills I didn't create. I woke up when I wanted, spent money on things I actually enjoyed, and didn't have to brace myself before opening my inbox. But a few weeks in, that silence grew louder, emptier. I found myself checking my parents' social media, just to see. Were they okay? Had they figured it out without me? And that's when it hit me. I was still tethered. Not financially anymore, but emotionally. I had walked away, but I hadn't truly let go. Sarah, my girlfriend, and possibly the sanest person in my life, called it out one night. "You say you're done," she said gently, "but you're still letting them take up space in your head." She was right. I was angry. Still replaying the betrayal. Still waking up some mornings, asking myself if I'd been too harsh. And when I realized that my anger wasn't just hurting them, it was eating me, I booked an appointment with my therapist. I sat in that office, laid it all out. The years of being overlooked, the will that left me with nothing, the revenge I'd carefully orchestrated to make them feel what I had felt. And when I finished, my therapist asked one simple question. "What do you want now? Punishment or peace?" I didn't have an answer, so I went for a drive. Past the old house, past the familiar streets. And then, without planning to, I pulled up across from my parents' new rundown apartment. The porch light was dim, the yard overgrown, a far cry from the home I had once helped keep afloat. And there she was, Mom, watching from the window. I don't know what I expected, but when the door opened, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not just physically, emotionally, worn down, tired. She didn't yell, didn't beg. She just said, "We lost the house." It wasn't a plea, it was a fact. I stood there unsure of what to feel. Part of me felt justified. Another part, the part still trying to unlearn years of being the fixer, felt something else. Pity maybe, or clarity. "I thought you had everything figured out," she said. "Tyler, he needed more." So I was punished for being responsible? She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. I didn't move back in. I didn't resume paying their bills. But that moment, standing on that porch, I realized something. Closure doesn't come from revenge. It comes from reclaiming your narrative and deciding what kind of person you want to be next. By the time my parents showed up at my apartment, it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about control. They hadn't called to apologize. They didn't come to make peace. They came because the reality of losing their provider son had finally sunk in, and it scared them. I opened the door to find all 3 of them, Mom, Dad, and Tyler. Mom looked exhausted, mascara smudged like she'd been crying for hours. Dad wore his usual scowl, the one he reserved for when I said things he didn't want to hear. And Tyler? He looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot like a kid about to be scolded. "Ryan, please," Mom started, voice trembling. "We need help." I didn't flinch. "You need to leave." Her face crumbled. "You're really going to let us lose everything over this?" I smirked. "Everything you left to Tyler?" "Yeah, he's got it covered." Tyler stepped forward, his mask slipping. "Dude, don't be like this. You always helped before. What's changed?" "What's changed?" "Everything." I crossed my arms and met his gaze. "Because I thought I was part of this family. Turns out I was just your piggy bank. And now, I'm closed for business." The silence that followed was thick, one of those moments where no one breathes. Then Dad, always the authoritarian, stepped in. "We raised you, fed you, gave you everything." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You mean the bare minimum? You want a medal for doing the legal responsibility of being a parent?" And with that, I shut the door in their faces. I expected to feel guilt. I didn't. Not even a flicker. I poured myself a drink, sat on the couch in the quiet of my apartment, and realized for the first time I was truly free. But freedom, as I was learning, is a double-edged sword. You lose the noise, the obligations, and sometimes the connection. The next few weeks were quiet. Eerily so. I got promoted at work, started dating Sarah. I was thriving, but still felt the weight of years gone by clinging to me. Then one day, out of nowhere, Tyler texted. Not to ask for money, not to demand anything, just 4 words. "Can we get coffee?" I stared at the message, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, the one that still hoped, responded, "When and where?" I didn't know what would come of it, but I knew one thing for sure. This time, I was walking into that conversation not as the backup plan, not as the bank, but as Ryan, a man who had finally learned how to say no and mean it. The knock on my door came late, later than any normal visitor would show up. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to look through the peephole, and there he was, Jacob, disheveled, pale, eyes sunken with a desperation I hadn't seen before. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. "What do you want?" He didn't waste time. "I need to talk." I stepped outside, not letting him in. He looked around as if embarrassed to be there. For once, he wasn't wearing designer anything, just a faded hoodie and worn-out jeans. The transformation was jarring. "I messed up," he said. "I lost everything." I didn't respond, just let the silence hang in the air. He swallowed. "Kelly left. Took Lily. I'm sleeping in Mom and Dad's basement. I don't even have a car anymore." I crossed my arms. "Sounds like a personal problem. I just need a little help, just enough to get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back." I laughed, a low, humorless sound. "You mean like the other dozen times you swore that?" "This time is different," he said quickly. "I've hit rock bottom. I get it now." I studied him. He looked sincere, but sincerity from Jacob was often just well-rehearsed desperation. "No," I said. His eyes widened. "You're really just gonna let me fall?" "You already did," I said evenly. "I just stopped catching you." He stood there stunned, mouth half open, unable to process the fact that I wasn't bending this time, that there would be no bailout, no safety net. I turned to go back inside. "Wait," he said. "So that's it?" I paused. "You want to fix your life? Get a job? Pay your own bills? Prove you can be a father to Lily? But don't ever come to me expecting me to do your work for you." And I closed the door. I didn't celebrate. I didn't pour a drink. I just sat on my couch and breathed. For years, I had been rescuing him, hoping he'd change. That one day he'd realize the damage he'd done, not just to himself, but to me. But people don't grow when they're shielded from consequences. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly, because I knew the difference now between helping and enabling. I wasn't the villain in this story. I was just the one who finally stopped being a pawn in his game. It had been 6 months since I last saw Jacob. I had drawn the line, set the boundary, and for once, held it. No more money, no more bailouts, no more pretending like everything was okay. I didn't expect him to change. Honestly, I thought I'd never hear from him again. But then, one Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I get it now. Just 3 words. No apology, no begging. But somehow they hit harder than anything he'd ever said before. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure what to feel. Relief? Closure? Skepticism? All I knew was that something in me shifted. The anger that had fueled me for years didn't flare up like it usually did. It was just quiet. Jacob wasn't fixed. He probably never would be. But maybe, just maybe, he'd finally started to understand. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready for that. Some things he had to figure out on his own. In the months that followed, I focused on building my own life, on reclaiming the years I'd spent trying to fix someone who never wanted to be fixed. I stopped checking his social media, stopped caring whether my parents were whispering behind my back, stopped justifying my choices to anyone but myself. I invested in therapy, started saving for a down payment on a condo, even adopted a dog, something I never thought I had the space, time, or peace to do. His name is Milo. He doesn't talk back, doesn't ask for money, just wags his tail and reminds me that healing doesn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, consistent, slow. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was living. I still get messages from extended family, some supportive, others not. But I don't owe them explanations. I don't owe anyone anything anymore. Jacob's life is his responsibility. Always was. I just stopped carrying the weight he refused to lift. And that simple decision, that boundary, it didn't destroy my family. It saved me. After months of silence, Tyler called me. Not my parents. Not some guilt-ridden extended family member. Tyler. The golden child. The one who coasted through life while I carried the weight. His voice was quiet when I answered, almost unrecognizable. Hey, can we talk? I agreed. Half out of curiosity, half out of a lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. We met at a local diner, the kind of place with sticky menus and too bright lighting. He looked different, tired, thinner, older somehow, not physically, but in his eyes. He was nervous, fidgety. He offered a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I just wanted to say, I get it now, he began. Everything. How unfair it was. What Mom and Dad did. What I did. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just let him talk. And for once, he did. Really did. He spoke about how it felt to hit bottom. About living in our parents' crumbling house with nothing, about watching their perfect image fall apart, about realizing just how much of his life had been subsidized by mine. They ruined me, he admitted, but I let them. There was no self-pity in his voice, just recognition, and maybe for the first time in our lives, accountability. I thought you had it all figured out, he continued. They always said you were the strong one. I thought it meant I didn't have to be. That line hit me like a freight train. All those years I thought being strong would earn me respect. It only made me invisible. The strength they admired was the very excuse they used to neglect me. I didn't forgive him. Not then, not fully. But I nodded. We talked for over an hour. Not as the responsible son and the favored one, but as 2 broken pieces of the same puzzle, finally seeing the picture we had been forced to build. When I left that diner, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I just felt still, like something had finally settled. Tyler still had a long way to go. So did I. But at least now we weren't pretending. We weren't dancing around the truth. For the first time, we were walking into it. Together, maybe, carefully, on our own terms. And that was enough. One of the most powerful takeaways from this story is the importance of setting boundaries, even when it comes to family. For too long, the narrator was trapped in a cycle of obligation, constantly giving without receiving respect or recognition. Many of us are taught that family always comes first, but that belief can become harmful when it's used to justify emotional manipulation, financial exploitation, or favoritism. Love should never come at the cost of your mental health, your self-worth, or your future. This story reminds us that being responsible doesn't mean being taken for granted. Just because you're capable doesn't mean you should be the default fixer. the one who absorbs the burden while others escape accountability. Sometimes walking away isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your identity, your peace, and your right to live a life free from guilt-based expectations. It also highlights the importance of emotional healing. Cutting ties may bring temporary relief, but true freedom comes from letting go of the anger that keeps us tethered to toxic patterns. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation, but it often means choosing peace over resentment, growth over bitterness. This isn't just a story about family betrayal, it's a story about personal empowerment, about learning to say, "I matter too," and living by that truth. And if you've ever felt like the strong one who was expected to hold everything together, let this be your reminder. You deserve support, recognition, and rest just like anyone else. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own boundaries. Are you giving more than you're receiving? Are you being seen for who you truly are, or only for what you provide? If you found value in this message, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life stories from Reddit that dig deep into the human experience. Let's keep these conversations going, because healing starts with honesty.